Hey, everybody. Welcome back to episode 7 of A Wild Ride, The Winds of Change with Brian and Amy. You guys, I get pretty excited when we have an opportunity to hop on here and share a little bit of our journey. And so, if you're new to listening, this is a wild ride that Brian and I have embarked on as a newly married couple just 2 months ago now. Yet, so much change for both of us in our lives. Brian being on his own for 12 years after divorce, and me being on my own for less than two, yet a divine coming together. And really, I think one thing that Brian and I are finding out is it's a big part of healing for both of us. And, in our world, we tend to think, well, that healing needs to come. Well, at least this is my perspective. And I think a lot of people feel this way. We need to just take time, right? We need to take time to heal. We need to take time to find ourselves, regroup, learn our lessons or whatever it is we think we have to do. And for me, that was not the journey that Holy Spirit was going to take me on. And there's a lot, and I think for Brian, even though he did have a lot of years, right?
Definitely.
That some of the deepest healing is coming as we have come together in our relationship. And this is not about bashing anything from the past. This literally is in the new beginnings that we're talking about. And in one of the episodes, we do go back and we say, how do we need to look back in order to go forward? And there definitely are things that need to take place individually and together, where that you're in a safe enough place to be able to do that in a way that honors another and each other. But what we're going to talk about today,
We did a thing.
And we want to tell you about that thing. And if you've been following the shorts that are on the YouTube, you've seen a little bit about the thing, and Brian will tell you a little bit about that. But we want to tell you about some of that journey and some things that came up for me in particular in this particular episode during that time.
Absolutely.
So tell them the thing, baby.
So when we got together, we both kind of heard a whisper when we were thinking about, future state, what's our life going to look like as we entwine together.
Georgia,
Texas. And weren't really sure. We both felt that, we'd love to go see each other's families that we hadn't seen. And we just kind of felt, hey, we may be traveling, visiting some of you guys, some of our family out there in the virtual world. So we were thinking RV-ish, whether it was a fifth wheel camper or, sometime a motorhome. Just kind of, had it in the back of our minds and didn't really know how it was going to happen. And I was looking at Marketplace one day and this ridiculous deal came up in Georgia, and she and I were looking at it, and it kind of hit us both. Didn't seem like a ton of work, which was always the thing, right? So based on the conversation I had with the dealer, over several days, we decided, yeah, let's jump on it. So we took off last week, Tuesday, drove 16-ish hours to Georgia. So if y'all remember, I've been living in this home 7+ years and slowly renovating it as resources and as inspiration came. And as a result of that, it was a place that was worse than a bachelor pad. My son and I had gotten used to a certain standard of living that most people would not be okay with. And Amy was never supposed to see the house in this condition. The whole intent was to always get it done before she ever set foot on the property. So this was her first time in Georgia, and drives up in the middle of the night to this home, overgrown driveway, overgrown everything, and walked in the door and seeing the chaos. She had seen videos, some videos of it, but each light it seemed like I turned on um, her light dimmed a little bit more. So I was just mortified, but I was more upset that she was having to experience this. So I'll let you kind of pick it up from there if you want.
Yeah, so we had made the purchase, made the decision to make the purchase of this 37-foot motor coach, and heading then to Georgia to get that. I let Brian make the decision for the most part on it because he does a lot of handiwork. He knows cars, he knows these things. I don't. So I'm like, okay, so there's trusting that even if right now the financing is coming, like I'm like, okay, here, let's do this. Make this decision together. I'll do my part, you do your part. And then knowing the background on his house situation and how literally, for the last several years, the healing journey, the release, there's just been a lot of things in Brian's life that have brought him to a place of more stillness, and then really listening to God in those directions, yet also, I mean, there's just a combination of things, right? Like when you said, like a standard of acceptable living that you had just settled.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't think there's anything to do with God or not with God with that. That's just a choice. Two,
Mm-hmm.
on as you're going through major changes and just like kind of, I think there's this fine line of depression too and stillness.
Good point.
Is that
Yeah,
is that fair?
That's probably fair.
Because I know personally I have experienced times when I just can't do stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Where there's like, oh my gosh, yes, there's a stillness, but our bodily response sometimes is less than maybe. I think God sometimes is like, well, I didn't say that.
Right. Well, on the flip side, though, not to interrupt you, even though I just
No,
did.
that's okay. No, I mean, we're just flowing in these. That's what we're trying to do. It's just a conversation.
There are times like earlier in this journey, maybe 4 years in, where the lawn was overgrown and I had a weed eater, and didn't hear the whisper, didn't hear the inspiration, and I went out there, put on my Carhartt jeans and my Georgia boots, work boots, and went out there and fired it up, and it had a 5-blade metal weed cutting, brush cutting attachment. And I was weed eating, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes, maybe 5. And one of the blades broke off and it went through the jeans, went through the leather boot, and went through my sock and cut my shin. So it would have broke my shin for sure if I didn't have that on there. So to me, that was just another lesson through many in this journey that, if I don't hear the whisper, if I don't have the inspiration, just to sit and, just throw things up there and, not necessarily even petitioning Abba, just listening and talking. And then the clarity will come, the inspiration will come. And because even if I was on the inside and working on putting up a light fixture or installing an accent wall, and I didn't wait, something would happen, some little thing, and it would just, aggravate and aggravate, and I'd end up getting super upset, probably throw a tool, maybe, ruin something. So that's kind of part of the journey as well. So, Amy brought up a really wonderful point that there is the fine line there, because, the thing that probably was the worst is just the cleanliness. So I'm living in a construction zone, and I was okay with having dirt in the corners of the shower, and that sort of thing. And yeah, so that would be something that I would definitely change in hindsight for sure. But anyway.
Yeah, so I mean, I think, okay, a couple of things, and I want this to be like somewhat succinct for people that do choose to listen to this, but it's a really great conversation because what we're trying to do here is the merging of two lives with very different backgrounds, and we've talked about that before. But what is most important is this trust in God and the desire to live a life where it's like, what's he saying? And that's what we're doing. But him knowing that he honors us too in who we are, how we've been created. So, um, so all that to be said, we, as I mentioned, the motorhome, we get there, we go to Brian's house. I knew that he had been working on certain things, but this, and I knew he had forewarned me that his home was not in a place that he ever had people come into, but it was this, like, I think of it as like an incubator time or whatever, the season of his life.
Chrysalis.
Yeah, a type of a chrysalis in a way. Yes, it is. Still is then.
No, I'm
Anyway,
flying. I'm a butterfly now.
okay, he's a butterfly with a dirty chrysalis.
They do look ugly when they're open.
So I can do a lot of things, and I knew we were getting into this like eyes wide open, but I'm like, I guess my eyes weren't that open. You looking for the water?
Yes, please.
Yes, I have my swimsuit on. And I did. I went in and I was like, oh my gosh. Like, feeling that this is just not okay. Like, maybe I don't know this guy. Like, maybe there's a side of him I don't know, because I like cleanliness, but I'm not an absolute. I'm not a crazy clean, but I like things clean and I like things orderly. I need to know where things are, and dishes have to be clean and all of the stuff. And you guys, this was really tough. And without like bashing him, but I was like, this is not okay. And I don't know. I dealt with it, but I didn't feel okay. Like, I didn't even want to sleep in there.
Yeah, and it was. Do you have more?
No, I guess not.
So that first night, there was a lot of silence, some distance. Next morning, she's like, Brian, I can't do this. I'm gonna go get some coffee, read.
No, this was like 3 days later. This was 2 nights later. This wasn't the first night.
That's right, because the next night we went and
and
purchased.
got the camper. We did the things, and I stayed another night.
Yeah.
And then it was the day we were supposed to go in,
so Friday.
and get the tires and
That's
all of
right.
that. Yeah.
So we had to replace the tires. That they looked great in the pictures, ton of tread, but they were the original tires from 2010, which is when they were made. So they were dry rotted and stuff, and there was no way they were going to make the road trip to Houston. So we had to stay an extra night, get tires the next day. But that morning, that Friday morning, she told me, she's like, Brian, I'm not okay. I need to go have some me time. And I needed to load my tools and stuff into the RV anyway. But that was interesting. So we were standing in the living room, having a conversation, reaching back towards regaining our intimacy together. And one thought that really struck me, and I asked her, I said, babe, how are we gonna navigate this journey when I'm asking you to trust my skill and my perseverance, that I will complete this in a very timely manner, because we're limited on time, even though we live outside of time, right? And I have the skill set to do it, and you're staring in complete contradictory evidence. How are we going to navigate that? And I referenced it to our walk. Sorry, you're getting the thumbs up. I'll put my hand down. But I don't, it's so easy for us to say that true humility is to believe what Abba says about us, and believe the word. We receive the word. We believe the word that we are his beloved children, that he only wants good for us. He is pure light, no darkness. Yet there are times that the evidence, that the symptoms speak against that, and that's where we choose to believe his word. So to me, I likened it to that, that choice that we make every day. And I don't know that it landed very well at that moment. But
is that when I said I wanted to punch you?
Pretty much.
Well, in the moment, I was very emotion driven.
Very, and absolutely rightfully so. Um, the house is definitely, it looks like a war zone. Um, it's interesting.
So, like I can hear that conversation now. In the moment when you're flipped your lid, kind of, you're just having a visceral response and imagining coming back to this after being on the road for a few months or whatever, and just going, I don't know how I can do it. Like that there's been a stretching over the last few years, literally over the last decade, but then a culmination, in the last 2 years with the ending of the relationship, family struggles, financial change, like leaving here. There are so many things, and that's not all of them. Those are the biggies that are popping up in this moment. And then putting this in there's that desire, not even a desire, innate response in my biology to guard my heart, shut it down, protect it, and go, oh no, what if I was wrong about this guy? What if a short marriage, a quick, short engagement, short courting time, if you even call it that, forgetting what I heard the Holy Spirit say and going, I effed up. What if I effed up? Like, I'm going to be taken, like this very self-protective coming in and going, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And not deeply, seriously, but those things were happening inside the physical body and my mind. And so I was leaning on my natural senses, right? Sight, sound, smell, taste, all those things, and going, they're not lining up. And the way we're trained, we're taught, right? Those are the things we depend on and protect ourselves in the world. And then as we walk in life with Christ, he's like, faith is the language of the senses in the spiritual realm, right? Like faith is your strength. Faith is the currency. And I couldn't find it in that moment. And so Brian's reminding was like, I know it here, but I'm not experiencing it, and I need to get out of here, at least for now, before I do have just say, I'm getting in the car.
Or say some things that would be difficult to take back. Yeah. So, and that's a fine line when we want to speak life into those that we love. It's knowing when is appropriate. Just like, the one time you're supposed to pray, it's the last time you need to hear that you're supposed to pray or that you need to pray or however it's said. So yeah, it's interesting. We're just, entwining ourselves together and understanding how we each kind of operate. But, what Amy said earlier about, healing, some of the deeper healing coming now that we're together, and I mentioned it in a couple of the other videos, there's still this little boy inside of me that I thought was completely healed. And every now and again, little things will come up, and it's like it's an opportunity for me to overcome that little boy. So just for instance, I don't know if you guys remember soccer boppers, but they were inflatable boxing gloves. And I got them for Christmas one year, and I was playing them like a beach ball, just kind of bouncing around in the living room, the formal living room, the one where nobody sat in except for holidays, and ended up knocking a statue down or something, and got fussed at, got yelled at, or whatever. I don't remember exactly what happened, but for me, my reaction was to bite holes in the soccer boppers because it was the soccer boppers' fault, right? So I found that there's still that potential for me to, come back, go at, in defense, in self-protective mode or whatever. So yeah, there's still little things come up, but because my heart is safe with her, I'm able to experience these things, and I was able to heal them completely at that time. So I say that straight-faced, But there were some tears, some anxiety, some stress involved in that overcoming, choosing not to go back to that little boy. But yeah, it's just been interesting for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, and for both of us, there's a lot of wounds, as we all have in different ways, that came up in that time. His, mine, how are we going to respond right here?
Mhm.
And having the foundation of this deep desire more than anything is walking in intimacy in our beloved identity with our Father and returning to that, even when there's like that, things like that. Um, there was a little of that last night, I guess, with watching Rocket Man
Mm.
last night, moment. And then at the end of the movie, you're like, what happened there? And it's just like, I don't, something comes up and we find these things and, you just kind of dealing with the voices. And you know what, right now, literally, this is an absolute shift of topic in that, but with Rocket Man, if you've seen this, is basically the story of Elton John and his upbringing. And one thing that kind of got me with that movie is how much he allowed the darkness, the dark thoughts to rule his life to the degree that it changed. I mean, it impacted everything: drug use, sex, um, alcohol, anger, everything,
Yeah.
compulsive buying, literally, like where we kind of want, peacemaker. He's like, I got it all because of those responses of those deep wounds of his, little boy that he needed to come into peace with and be able to lovingly say goodbye and yet really kind of take him into and accept him at the same time. But seeing seasons in my own life where the darkness ruled and you let those thoughts and those lies take charge and it impacts the trajectory of your life,
Mhm.
versus when we have the foundation that says, oh, this is who you are, you
Yeah.
know.
So getting back to the RV, we had called the day before when we were still at the dealer, and a local tire shop said, "Hey, can you get these?" "Yeah, we can get them tomorrow." Told them we wanted to leave out that day, so we assumed everything was okay. Get up the next morning, Amy, we have our conversation. Amy goes to the coffee shop, finds a lovely place and a nice meat lover's omelet. I'm loading the RV, drive to town, just to get it closer, to have everything packed, because I did not want to even suggest to stay another night at the house. So then, we call them and they're like, "Oh, your tires didn't come on the truck." So that was another opportunity for us to really lose it. I mean, I started searching, okay, is there, tire shops along the way, is, all the things, and just doing, right? So using common sense, and don't think I was listening to the whisper at the moment, but just wanting to get moving, to put some movement. And it was blocked. It was blocked. And then um, we drove up there to the tire place, and they're like, "Yeah, the guy went." So they sent one of their own people to the warehouse to get the tires, which they hadn't told us. So we would have had the RV there earlier. But anyway, we turned back around, get the RV. Yeah, we'd be done by 5:30. So we ended up getting on the road 6-ish, I guess. But that was just, I don't know. It was another whisper, another God hint, because Abba hug, because Amy was at the point we could have a conversation um, in a better headspace. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
And one thing Brian and I are really learning to honor is like, when you've both been married before, it's like you really want to do things different. And you have the grace to do that if you choose, right? Like, okay, at way, way closer to 60 than 50, that I could say, Brian could say, we're the same age. We could say, well, this is just how I've always done it. This is how it is, this is how I am. But we're both saying, no, there's ways to do better. It's not that everything has to change, but it's like, what if the culmination of things in life has just brought us to this plate to say, we're invited into something different and to respond different, to be able to see how one another responds. And, I tell him post chemo back in 2010, my mind processes things different. And I don't own that as literally as he is, so are we in this world, that I have the mind of Christ. But the reality that I'm experiencing is when I try to think of the million things going on out here that isn't in the present moment, everything gets expanded. It's hard to put in order. So I literally just kind of have to flow as it goes. And he can see when my mind goes, I can't process, I can't take that in right now. Like there's too much other cortisol thing related tensions going on. So let's stop and table that and to honor that. And he's really good at that because his mind can process so many things at one time. But it doesn't make me feel inferior. It's just, he honors the difference, and I'm doing the same.
It's, all the things Paul said, whether it's in honor, preferring one another or whatever. So just today, I asked her, show me how to fold the towels again. Because we're two separate ways. I've actually had like 3 or 4 different ways that I learned to fold towels over my life, but it's important to me. And, she showed me, and all of a sudden it clicked. I was like, yay. And then she showed me a different one, and it's like it clicked. And not to toot my own horn, but I think it's, other-centered, self-giving love. We're both living this. So it's one thing to read it and believe it and agree with it, and it's another to have someone that Abba brought into your life that you are so overwhelmingly in love with. It's not just infatuation. It's not just attraction. It's, spirit, soul, body, all the things. It becomes second nature. Or does it? Are we still choosing it?
Well, I do think we have to choose it at certain times. I will speak for myself because yes, I completely agree. And that is my intention every single day with every single thing. But when there's areas of the heart that still come in, at least in mine, I can only speak for me, that self-protect, I have to consciously make the choice to go. And so what Holy Spirit has so shown me in her tenderness is, let me take care of your heart as you take care of another. So that could be Brian, that could be someone else. If I'm always worried about how I'm responding and how I react, again, that's the being your own God. Where when I trust them for that, then I am free to just be aware and in tune and be able to see the needs, to notice the look, to notice the shutdown, to notice the whatever you have or somebody else that's in front of me.
It's really a beautiful thing because there are times when I'm thinking or doing something and she'll ask me a question and my answer may be short, but I don't mean anything by it. It's just, that's where my answer is. But she's been really good at, asking, hey, what's going on? You're coming across different. And so we're both getting really good at asking and communicating and not allowing our preconceived thoughts or our perceptions to skew what we think is occurring.
And that's the constant decision and choice to communicate and not let things go. And renewing the mind, letting go of the story we tell ourselves versus, find out what the story is. Here's what happened, but this is the story I'm telling myself.
Right.
And it's like, wait, what? And we've had that a lot where how can, and we've been working through that, like where we see, whoa, this is what I thought was happening. This is what you. So they were coming at a very different angle. And then to remain curious
Yes.
on what, oh, okay. So that, like, not judgmental, but I'm curious. Okay, that's different. That's the way you see it. But it's given me insight.
Yes.
It's information. It's not, it doesn't have to mean anything. It's just information about the other person. Okay. That's how they do it. And, we've talked about a lot of things here, and I feel like we ought to wrap it up pretty soon. But what most, there's like remaining in this place of constantly being open to healing. I don't know, I kind of lost my train of thought on that, but absolutely one of the biggest things that I'm experiencing in the last few years, and then it's an acceleration of that, is remaining in that place of faith, of coming back to saying, stop the story of what some of these things you see mean, and come into, like, I literally have this opportunity, you guys. If we all have this opportunity, whether this is with a child, a partner, a boss, whatever, like that, those relationships that are right in front of you, is like whoever's been put in our sphere of influence. Remind them of who they are when they forget. Like, this is literally the person that God has put in front of me right now to reflect Christ. To say, no, this is who you are. Like, it doesn't matter that Brian and I have come from absolutely different backgrounds. We grew up in very similar. And that was a big basis for us, right? Like, to realize, we're like, oh my gosh, we literally, like, there's so many things that overlap up until our 20s. But then we took very different paths.
Yeah, socioeconomically, for the most part, it was definitely different. But even, I mean, you're growing up, you were probably upper middle class.
Yeah.
So, but so the one thing, as we wrap up, that I would like to just kind of mention, I don't know if I've mentioned it before, but when she and I were courting, I love that, before we had actually met, she had expressed some concerns, about the hurts that she was going through and the different things, and her desire to heal first, and Abba kind of pushing the timeline. And I just committed to her that I would love every iteration of who she is as she, journeys this life, because you're not always going to have the same person. We're all, I'm not saying evolving, but as we experience things, particularly as we heal, we're going to change a little bit about the way we do it. So, and she in turn is loving the different me's that she sees. She's like, we didn't talk about this. I was like, no, as a matter of fact, we did not. But I think it's really important that we understand that, the one we love is always growing and maturing. Yes, it's a finished work, yet there's still, it's kind of a contradictory in terms. Some of my finished work friends may find aught with this, but we're still changing, we're maturing, however you want to look at it. Yes, we already are mature according to Galatians, but anyway, as we become more seasoned, if you will, it's like different people, but the Spirit's still the same.
Okay. You guys, thanks for tuning in, as we just literally, we get to process some of this, but wow, like doing life with the Trinity, as we experience twists and turns along the way, understanding more of who they are in us, through us, and how that relationship is really what impacts all the relationships here. That love that we're willing to receive gets to flow out of us. And there's times we're not receiving it and it doesn't flow out very well. But rather than looking at that, judging that, condemning that in ourselves or another, is just seeing the growth. Just going, okay, wow, thank you. Thank you for holding up that mirror so we can choose differently, heal a little more so it just begins to flow more and more naturally. It's not about process and behavior modification. Yes, there's things to learn. If we don't know stuff, we need to learn it.
Absolutely.
And whether that's through, downloads or spirit enlightenment through that, or it comes through a book or a podcast or a friend, we're still growing and learning. But resting in who we are, that changes everything.
Absolutely.
You guys, thanks for tuning in. All right,